What if I told you that some of the world's greatest crises came not from wars or natural disasters, but from microscopic enemies? Throughout history, invisible adversaries have claimed countless lives and altered the course of civilizations. Today, we delve into the dark past of 7 deadly diseases selected for their devastating mortality rates and profound impact on human history. From pandemics that decimated populations to epidemics that changed the fate of empires, these diseases are the true silent killers. Join me as we uncover the tales of these silent killers that have shaped human history. Starting our countdown at number 7, cholera. Cholera, a tale as old as time, yet as modern as the bacteria that cause it. Vibrio cholerae. This disease has been an unwelcome guest in human history, with its origins traced back to the Indian subcontinent. It was from these waters that cholera began its global journey, hitching a ride with trade and migration to touch every corner of the world. The 19th century bore witness to several devastating pandemics, which turned streets into graveyards across continents. The disease spreads through water contaminated by the bacterium, turning a simple sip into a potential death sentence. Symptoms are severe and swift: watery diarrhea, vomiting, and muscle cramps leading to dehydration and, if untreated, death within hours. As cholera rampaged through nations, it inadvertently highlighted the vital importance of clean water. The repeated outbreaks became a catalyst for public health reforms, pushing cities to rethink and revamp their sanitation systems. Cholera's wrath showed the critical need for clean water, sparking public health reforms worldwide. At number 6, we find typhus, often confused with another killer, typhoid. Unlike its similarly named counterpart, typhus is not spread through contaminated water or food, but through an altogether more insidious vector, lice. This tiny parasite is the courier for a deadly bacterium known as Rickettsia prowazekii, which is transmitted to humans through the louse's bites. The relationship between typhus and human suffering is historically entwined with the grim conditions of war and poverty. During the Napoleonic Wars, armies faced an enemy as deadly as their human adversaries. Typhus thrived in the crowded, unsanitary conditions of the soldiers' camps and prisons. It was an era where personal hygiene was often a casualty of war itself, leading to rampant outbreaks. World War I saw a similar scenario, where millions were living in close quarters under stressful conditions, with limited access to clean facilities, allowing typhus to flourish. The disease decimated troops and civilians alike, leading to staggering losses that were often overshadowed by the war itself. Typhus not only decimated armies, but also ignited a passion for improving hygiene practices. Halfway through our list, tuberculosis takes a notorious spot. Known historically as consumption, this disease has haunted humanity for centuries. Tuberculosis, or TB as it's often abbreviated, is caused by a bacterium that primarily attacks the lungs but can invade any part of the body. The symptoms of tuberculosis are hauntingly memorable: relentless coughing, sometimes accompanied by blood, severe weight loss, fever, and night sweats. Imagine being so debilitated that every breath feels like a battle, and every night is an ordeal of sweat and fever. In the past, TB was often seen as a romantic disease, featured in literature and art, symbolizing frailty and tragic beauty. However, the reality was far from romantic. It led to severe social stigma, isolating sufferers, and marking them as untouchables in many societies. The struggle to find a cure was long and arduous. It wasn't until the mid-20th century that effective antibiotics were developed, turning a once certain death sentence into a treatable condition. Yet, the battle against tuberculosis wasn't over. Despite advances, tuberculosis remains a ghost of the past in many parts of the world. At number 4, malaria, an ancient disease that battled ancient civilizations. Tracing its origins back to the depths of history, malaria has been a formidable foe, transmitted by the seemingly innocuous mosquito. This disease has not only plagued individuals, but has also had a profound impact on armies and leaders, altering the course of battles and shaping the fates of entire empires. Historical accounts suggest that malaria could have been a critical factor in the decline of Roman power and the suffering of its legions. The battle against malaria saw a turning point with the discovery of quinine. Extracted from the bark of the cinchona tree, quinine was a game-changer in the treatment of this deadly disease. Its introduction into medicine marked a significant advancement, allowing European colonists to survive in mosquito-infested regions, thus altering geopolitical landscapes. Malaria's influence extends from the fall of empires to the shaping of tropical medicine. Claiming the third spot is smallpox, a disease as old as civilization itself. This formidable illness, caused by the variola virus, has left a profound scar on human history. It spread globally through close contact, thriving in densely populated areas, leaving behind a trail of devastation. Smallpox was particularly notorious for its impact on indigenous populations. When it traveled across the Atlantic with European explorers, it ravaged the native peoples of the Americas. Lacking immunity to the virus, entire communities were decimated, their numbers dwindling dramatically within a few short years. But the story of smallpox also highlights a monumental triumph in medical science. In the late 18th century, Edward Jenner introduced the concept of vaccination using a less lethal cousin of the virus, cowpox. This groundbreaking method paved the way for the first ever global vaccination campaign. By 1979, the World Health Organization declared smallpox eradicated, marking a historic victory for public health. Smallpox remains a testament to the power of effective vaccination programs. Runner-up in our grim countdown is the Black Death. Let's step back to the 14th century, a time when Europe faced one of its most profound crises. The Black Death, or bubonic plague, swept through the continent with merciless fury, claiming lives with a speed and scale that is hard to comprehend today. Originating in Asia, the plague was transmitted via the fleas on rats that were common on trading ships and in the bustling urban centers of medieval Europe. Victims of the Black Death experienced severe symptoms: fever, painful swelling of the lymph nodes known as buboes, and dark blotches caused by internal bleeding. The speed at which it killed was terrifying, often leading to death within a week of the onset of symptoms. This catastrophic plague led to massive social upheaval. Populations dwindled, entire communities vanished, and a wave of hysteria and despair swept across the land. Economically, labor shortages became commonplace, dramatically altering the dynamics of supply and demand, which some argue gave rise to modern capitalism. The Black Death reshaped medieval Europe, altering the course of its history forever. At the pinnacle of our list, the Spanish flu claims the title of the deadliest. Emerging from the shadows in the final year of World War I, this influenza pandemic swept across continents with a ferocity unmatched by any disease of its time. It was a sinister guest in a world already battered by the ravages of war. The virus, known as H1N1, found fertile ground in the crowded military camps and war-ravaged cities. From there, it spread to every corner of the globe, from remote Pacific islands to the Arctic. The speed of its transmission was breathtaking, facilitated by the movements of troops and the increased connectivity of the era. It's estimated that the Spanish flu infected 1/3 of the planet's population. Between 20 and 50 million lives were lost to the virus, a toll that eclipsed the casualties of the war itself. The sheer scale of the pandemic exposed severe vulnerabilities in public health infrastructures worldwide. The Spanish flu taught the world about the critical importance of global cooperation in combating pandemics. What have we learned from these devastating diseases? As we reflect on the tales of cholera, typhus, tuberculosis, malaria, smallpox, the Black Death, and the Spanish flu, we see a tapestry of human suffering interwoven with strides toward scientific breakthroughs and societal advances. Each of these diseases, formidable in its time, reshaped societies in profound ways. The scourge of cholera emphasized the critical need for clean water and sanitation, principles that are fundamental in modern public health. Typhus and tuberculosis highlighted the importance of personal hygiene and living conditions, pushing for better housing and urban planning. Malaria and smallpox, on the other hand, became the battlegrounds for the development and implementation of vaccinations, a medical revolution that has saved countless lives. The terrifying sweep of the Black Death and the Spanish flu underscored the necessity of international cooperation and early intervention in public health crises. Thus, from the depths of despair and death, humanity learned to harness science and community for survival. History's deadliest diseases remind us of our vulnerabilities but also our potential for resilience and innovation. Thank you for joining me on this historical journey through sickness and health. As we've delved into the narratives of the 7 worst diseases of the past, it's clear that history is not just about understanding what happened, but also about learning from it. Reflecting on these epidemics, we see the resilience of humanity and the importance of scientific advancement. Let these stories remind us to support ongoing research and public health initiatives. Stay curious, stay aware, and keep exploring the lessons of the past. Goodbye and stay healthy.